Hi, everybody. I'm Emily Wood. I am your eLearning SIG coordinator here for the ATD Cascadia chapter, and I want to thank you all for coming to join us today for our first official online chapter meeting. For those of you who haven't been to one of our meetings, they happen on the second Tuesday of each month, and they are open to the public, so you do not need to be a member of the ATD Cascadia chapter to attend. It is my pleasure today to introduce Dr. Stella Lee, who has 20 years of experience as a digital learning and development leader. Her focus is on enterprise-wide e-learning strategy and governance, learning management system evaluation and implementation, learning analytics, digital transformation, and change management. Stella has recently consulted for the LMS implementation project at TransLink, the transportation authority in the city of Vancouver, Canada. Stella is sought after as an international speaker and expert of the future of workplace learning. She was a subject matter expert in evaluating e-learning standards for the United Nations International Atomic Energy Agency and conducted postdoctoral research with I-Core Research Lab at Athabasca University, Canada's Open University. Currently, Stella serves as Canada's Startup Advisor and is the technology columnist for Training Industry magazine. Stella owns a successful consulting practice called Paradox Learning, Inc. that serves government, private sectors, multinationals, NGOs, and higher education. Please join me in welcoming her today.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. You sound so professional. I should always have you introducing me.
Anytime you want.
So, hello everyone. First of all, I want to make sure you guys hear me okay. So if there's any problem, please let us know. And I wanted to start by sort of setting expectations here. I know it's challenging to share any of these knowledge over the internet. So I want to make it a little bit more interactive. So feel free to jump in. I see that there's not too many of us today. So I think you all have speaking privilege. So if that isn't the case, let us know. But feel free to jump in at any time. Okay. All right. Just to get started, I am really excited to be here to talk about disruptive technologies in learning and development. So first of all, I'd like to just chat a little bit about what's your understanding of disruptive technologies? Like what do you think it is? Okay, and I'm trying to advance my slide here. Okay, so do you guys have any notion of what that is? This is your time to jump in, please. Or typed into the group chat. That's why I'm here. Okay, that's fine. Any other taker? Artificial intelligence, okay. Uber is a good example. Great. These are great ideas. Why is Uber a good example? Changes the way we do things. Yeah. So the definition is that technologies that are significantly alter the way businesses or the entire industries operate. So these are often technologies that forces companies to either change their approach to do business or risk losing their market shares or becoming irrelevant. So example I like to give, it's Blockbusters. Do you guys remember that? And do you remember the Blockbuster used to be everywhere and now it's where? I think it's gone. I at least in Canada, I don't see it anymore.
There's one Blockbuster left and it's here in Oregon.
Are you serious? Wow.
I am absolutely serious. We have the last Blockbuster franchise in the world and it's here in Oregon.
Well, I'm curious as to what that one is doing. Like maybe they give you coffee when you go in. I don't know. The reason I use that as an example is everybody can relate to it. So what happened to Blockbusters? What displaced them? Netflix, right? Yeah, that's right. what's Netflix doing that Blockbuster isn't doing? Providing, yeah, streaming videos on demand. And that is a disruptive technology. Not Netflix isn't a disruptive technology. It is leveraging a disruptive technology, meaning streaming services, to disrupt the industry of video rental. Yeah, even before that, you didn't have to leave the house. Mail first, remember? Yes, I remember that. They started with the, mail the DVDs to you, and then you have to, I think it comes with return envelope, and you can just drop it off. Nowadays, of course, that's even that is inconvenient. Now it's literally just a whole library of movies at home. And actually, Netflix has since changed their business model into movie production, right? It's a movie studio now. So you still get the DVDs. Is this still a service? I didn't even realize they have that. So that's interesting. So that's an example I like to use. And I think you guys talk about Uber. That's another one. It's like we don't have Uber in Vancouver yet. It's some government regulation, but everywhere I go, where there's Uber in the city, I prefer that. So that's a disruptive technology. And can you guess how many disruptive technologies are out there, that are being, used, being developed, that's being, investigated? Take a guess. Just like you hear about AI, hundreds. Yeah, that's right, thousands. Wow, you guys are very optimistic. Okay, maybe not quite. But there is, I found this little gem of a poster that I really love. It's called a table of disruptive technologies, and it's neatly organizing all the disruptive technologies. There's 100 of them currently. This is put together by Imperial College London, by the way. I included the source of reference here. I know this is very tiny to see. I just want to give you a sense of what's all that's happening. By the way, Emily, would you be able to distribute my slide deck to the participants today?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, yeah, because I'm always happy to share. I know sometimes doing these talks is very difficult to read and digest everything. So yeah, that's the link. Thanks, Emily, for sharing. I love that because it gives you like a visual, an idea of how many disruptive technologies are happening right now. The green on the sort of lower left corner are the one that's it's at the market nowadays, and then the yellows are sort of like the next 10 years or so. So you sort of get a gist of things that's being out in development. And some of these, when you go further out, from left to right, some of these ideas are pretty far-fetched, and it's still a research idea right now. But good to keep an eye on. On the right-hand side, you see those tiny white print are the corresponding organizations and companies that are doing either selling these technologies or marketing them or developing or researching about them. So it just to give you a general sense that I think sometimes when you talk about disruptive technologies, you often just get stuck with. Hello? Are you guys doing okay?
I am good, thank you.
Okay, good. So I think sometimes we keep hearing the same 5 or 6 technologies, and my point to you is to keep an eye on a bigger picture, right? It's not just AI, it's not just IoT, it's not just 3D printing. These are more popular disruptive technologies on the market, but there's literally over 100 of them. So, moving on. As learning professionals, you must be wondering, how are the future learning innovations made possible by these technologies? What's happening? What's up and coming? And how do we use them? What are some practical applications on that. The first one I wanted to share with you, I think, one of you mentioned is artificial intelligence. So AI, as we call it, and within a subset of AI, it's machine learning. Okay, so machine learning and AI, you hear them interchangeably, but in fact, there are many ways of attaining AI, of attaining intelligence in a machine, and machine learning. It's one way of attaining that. I just want to clarify that before we get into that. And I don't know if you guys, read about it in your professional journals or read your feed on LinkedIn. I think I can pretty safely assume pretty much every day I encounter at least one article or one tweet or one link that has to do with AI and machine learning in the learning and development space. Is that the case for you guys? Did you get to, did you encounter this often? And feel free to share if you do.
Yes, every day.
Yeah, right? Like it's not, yeah. So I think there's so much conversation going on. And sometimes it's not necessarily in the same language. So I'll give you an example. Adaptive and personalized learning is one application for AI. It doesn't seem to be integrated into what we're doing. I think Sarah mentioned that. That is true. I think a lot of these efforts are happening in silos. And some of them are not necessarily supportive of learning. I think some of these are still, good ideas, and it works in maybe one subject area or one type of training, and it's not necessarily something that's scalable or something applicable right away. Broadly speaking, there's three areas that I see good applications on are content curation, adaptive or personalized learning, and the use of chatbots. And I wanted to sort of, talk to you guys about each of them. Content curation. I know, I presume most of you are in e-learning or at least have some interest in e-learning. So if that's not a correct assumption, let me know and I'll be happy to, yes, okay, that's good. So I think in e-learning, most of you would use a learning management system or an LMS, correct? Now the trend has been shifted from more of a build your content from scratch and put it in the system to what we call more of a content curation model. So at work, but not in my practice. Yeah, so I think a lot of the smaller businesses might not make use of a learning management system, but I think a lot more medium to bigger businesses would. So in the current kind of trend, if you will, on incorporating AI or machine learning, it is kind of in a way of a recommender system. So this company called LearnAmp, based in the UK, they like to brand it as Netflix meets Spotify. So it kind of gives you a gist of understanding what this is about, right? So the idea is that there are many content out there in the world, and they exist in pockets. You get YouTube videos, you get iTunes U, you get courses from MOOC like Udacity or Coursera or edX. You get business journals like Harvard Business Review. You get Wall Street Journal. You get articles from different places. So how can you source that and put that together and recommend it based on content interest or based on your job role of what you do or based on competencies? And to put it into one platform. And that's what machine learning and AI, it's making use of the algorithm behind that to dynamically make recommendations for you. And this is one trend that I've seen that is creeping up more and more the past couple of years. Yeah, you're right. Sarah mentioned something about LEP. What LEP stands for is learning or learner experience platform. So that's a new term to try to differentiate what the traditional learning management systems were about. So it directs you to what you need to learn to an extent. It will recommend based on perhaps your past history. It would make recommendation or create newer learning path based on say your test score. There are many attributes that it can take into consideration, or it could manually curate it for you, and then you could change it as you go along. If you can think about it as when you go to Amazon and you shop for books, and it would say you might also like this book, but then in Amazon it also gives you the functionality to say no, I'm not interested, or I already read this book, I already purchased it. So it helps, as an end user, you have to provide some feedback or some way to update the assumptions behind that, and that's what a lot of the these LEPs are doing. I really like this one because it does give you the ability to update these assumptions. Let me just, sorry, I'm trying to keep up with the chat as well. But Amazon doesn't give you a self-assessment or test my reading level. That's right. It's a balance between how much communication you can give back to the system, because the challenge with these big systems is they ask you too many questions, people don't use them. So it does give you a way to say, I own your book, so I don't need this recommendation, or it does give you a limited ability to update it. But it would be a good idea, actually, if it gives you a self-assessment on your reading level. I use emotionally intelligent assessment in target training and learning for individuals. That's really interesting. I would love to hear more about that, Susan. Perhaps we can have a chat after. So I think one interesting way of using AI and machine learning is to these content curation / recommender system. So if I go on to the next slide, oh no, I lost my mouse. Okay, there you go. You can see, I don't know how much you can see on my screen, but on the right hand side above these pictures, there's an edit recommendations. So that's what I love about the system, is that actually it just don't assume they get the recommendations right. It actually allow you to edit your preferences. Okay. The next thing is I want to talk about what's interesting in the chatbot space. Have you guys used chatbots at all in your daily interaction? Anyone? No? Yes?
Yes.
Yes? On Facebook, what are some examples of chatbots that you guys use?
Well, I'll say at Avanade, we use chatbots for several different things, primarily for a Q&A help desk sort of issues that come up. And so people can type questions and the chatbot will answer based on past questions and answers that have come up.
Yeah, that's mostly in the form of a virtual assistant, right? Or what I see more and more happening in the HR and the learning space are chatbots that do performance support or coaching or mentoring. I just pulled up the screen from Slack. Do you guys use Slack to communicate with students who will be using Slack in the workplace? Yeah, that's right. Rekha mentioned that as one of the use. Yeah, it does sound like fun. It is really good fun. Chatbot's been around, actually. This is nothing new. This has been around since the 1960s. The first chatbot was created in 1966, I believe, Elisa. It was created as a counselor for counseling purpose. What's changed these days is in the old days, chatbots were you have to basically prescribed a formula. I used to play with Elisa. Oh wow, that's me too, Emily, actually. So what's different is it used to be we have to manually code the exact responses or similar responses of what you think human is going to ask. These days, when you can use machine learning algorithm, you can sort of have the bot to start learning by itself based on the interaction with humans, based on the collective knowledge that it collected to infer answers to that. So I've been sort of tracking the development in the past couple of years, and I see a lot of applications now start coming up in both HL and the L&D space. It's still not integrated with the bigger systems. A lot of these efforts are still a chatbot companies doing their own thing and start integrating it into an LMS, start integrating into an HL system. I use Slack as an example because they do have 1 million chatbots there. So I think some of them are quite fun. They get donuts to organize coffee and onboard new hire meetings, right? You get birthday bots. You get Hey Taco. So these are quite fun to work with. And I don't know if you guys pay attention in the more academic learning space, but in the academic learning space, you also get Jill Watson. Have you guys heard of her? At Georgia Tech? Anyone? Yes? Maybe? Not at Boise. Okay, so Jim have. Jim, are you able to tell us a little bit about Jill? What have you heard about Jill Watson? For those of you that have heard of her. No? Okay, I would just heard about her. Can you
if you're trying to talk. You'd have to unmute Zoom. For Jim, if you're trying to talk, you'd have to unmute. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just so Jim was saying I just heard about her. Yeah, so she made the news. She was introduced in 2014. So at Georgia Tech, there is a master's online program for computer science, and this is a fairly large course. It has over 300 students enrolling each semester. And one of the key functions for that course is to make use of the discussion forum. So because it's not face-to-face classes, so when students have questions, they make use of the online chat forum and to post questions. And so typically this course hire 3 or 4 teaching assistants to help moderate and answer students' questions. In 2014, they decided, well, this is a course about computer and AI. Why don't we introduce a chatbot as one of their teaching assistants? But they didn't tell students that. They didn't tell students that we're introducing a chatbot, and they didn't tell students that, not all the TAs are humans. And it was a very interesting experiment because, for one, students couldn't tell the difference. And for another, they actually ranked Jill Watson fairly highly as a TA. So much so, one student actually said, she's so great, we should nominate her as the best TA of the year. So you can imagine that's becoming quite controversial there. But ever since then, because and even when their experiment was revealed to students to say, hey, actually, Jill it's a bot, it's not human. Nobody seemed to complain about it. They seem to take that news quite okay. I suspect it partly has to do with the fact that these are computer science students. They already bought into the whole notion of chatbots, and it's been and they've been using it ever since. And one of the really cool thing is that now it's a known fact that every semester for this course they would have one chatbot as a TA, but they don't tell you which TA is a bot. So it becomes a bit of a competition for the amount of students to say, can you tell which one is not human? And then we have this grand reveal at the end of the semester by the professor as a learning lesson to say, here are some things you can detect. Here are some things you can kind of see that that's not a human behavior. So Sarah said my financial planner uses a bot for scheduling as part of his digital business. Yeah, scheduling is one of the main application. I think a lot of the more routine, mundane, and predictable tasks are being used by chatbots. And I see especially in the L&D space, a lot of the onboarding tasks, especially like first level onboarding tasks, meaning here's a bunch of documents you need to read about the company, here's a video, welcome message from the president, like those sort of more administrative aspect of onboarding, if you will, being sort of delegated to the chatbots. One example, if you're interested in looking at that, there's a chatbot by a company called OBIE, and they specifically designed chatbots for this purpose, for L&D, for onboarding, for coaching, for pushing out information from different silos. It would push out information from Dropbox, from Evernote, from Google Drive, and sort of consolidate into one place and push it out to you. So the idea is that it'll be more concentrated and more interactive for you. So any questions or comments so far on that for AI and machine learning applications? Any additional insights or thank you guys for sharing the links and the resources in the chat, by the way. Yeah, that somebody said, I guess I'm experiencing bots more than I thought. That's right. And sometimes I also I'm curious too when I go on the website and try to get customer services to talk to me on like my telephone service. Sometimes I wonder if they actually, when you do the test, when you typed in your chat, I sometimes wonder if that's actually a human or a bot. Like, it's hard to know these days. So that's, it is getting, it's getting really common. Sarah asked a really interesting question. I get routine admin tasks, but I wonder how a bot can coach humans. Yeah, I don't think you can fully, but I think they are questions that depending on, how large of a data set you can get prior to the bot's ability to coach humans, right? I mean, machine learning is all about pattern matching. So if you can get a large data set to understand some of these coaching issues, I think it would help to sort of give you a first level of information. I don't think it's ever going to take away the more nuanced human interaction. And what I think the beauty of using chatbot is it take away the more mundane, the more routine things that we human has to do. So it works better when you work together with a chatbot to say this, maybe this person needs coaching, and the bot could be the first level of running the coaching session to sort of cover the basics to make sure that the terminologies are defined and they have an understanding and set expectations and set goals. And then you can go in as an expert coach to then spend more, focused time on unpacking these conversation and dig deeper into things. So the way I see it is not so much that the bot would able to just replace human and coach, and do a coaching session fully, but it sort of take away sort of maybe the first introductory level of tasks, and it will free humans up in, focusing on the deeper issues. Yeah, and you're right. It depends on how you define coaching, and the deep relationships and the feedback that grow over time definitely are not, a bot can ever do. But what bots can do is able to provide you maybe a transcript throughout the history of this coaching sessions to sort of flag some patterns out or identify some issues to, and you might or might not agree with it, but it's at least it will bring awareness to you. One of the really, by the way, really interesting notion that came out from the Jill Watson experiment is that because Jill Watson was trained based on the data that they collected in the past, and as you imagine, in a master's level computer science courses, it tends to be mostly younger guys. So her data set and her understanding of human interaction is also biased. There's a very interesting article that came out from that research called Jill Watson Doesn't Care If You're Pregnant. Basically, the thesis of that paper is about if you're a male student and if you talk to Jill Watson about personal issues such as I am going to be a father this semester, I'm going to have my firstborn this year, and Jill Watson would recognize it and say, "Congratulations for being a father! How exciting!" But if a female student goes and interact with Jill Watson to talk about a personal issue like that, to say, "I just found out that I'm pregnant, I'm expecting this semester," Jill actually doesn't know what to say because there's not enough data in our past of this interaction about a female student being pregnant during the semester. So Jill would just say, "Welcome to the course." She doesn't have a very specific response to a female student sharing this piece of personal information to her, right? So that is definitely, so definitely that is something that you need to keep in mind, that the information is only as good as what is being fed into it based on past history. So that's something that is an implication we need to think about. So I am loving all your sharing of the links. Emily, thank you. You know, I don't mean to put you to work so much, but I really appreciate that. So the second trend I want to talk about is, big data. I'm sure you guys hear about it all day long. And what I think is interesting in our world is the application on learning analytics. Big data is, just to define it quickly, it's extremely large data sets. By extremely large, what it means is it's large enough that your average program like Excel it's not able to handle that, right? And what is interesting about big data is that it has the ability to be analyzed computationally to reveal patterns and trends, or any insights that has to do with human behavior, right? And for learning, we take that approach to gain insights on your learner behavior and how students interact with a particular learning activity or learning path or how well they're doing, and able to perhaps make some prediction or intervention within that. Now, the challenge with learning analytics is it's still largely an academic field. There's a bit more effort in connecting that from the academic research to applications in the industry. But it's still not, well defined. I think a lot of that is translated into return on investment. It's translated into, we need to know the completion rate of a particular course. But it's a lot more than that. I'd like to just share just one example with you. So how many of you use or heard of Desire to Learn? Sometimes it's just called D2L. It's a learning management system. It's similar to Moodle or WebCT. Yeah, okay, so a few people say they use it. PSU, is that in Portland? Sorry, I'm not familiar with the acronym. At Portland State University, yeah. Oh, good. So Desire to Learn is more of an academic learning management system, but they've been they've done the crossover, so they also use it for private sectors now. And one interesting feature is an add-on component. So maybe Portland State might or might not have it because this is an add-on feature, meaning you have to pay additional money to get it. It's called Performance Plus. This component is interesting because what it does, it takes it factors into a certain attribute, such as the number of times you log into the system, the duration that you stay in the system, your performance, your test scores throughout the semester, your previous test scores and grades from other courses. All those attributes are being factored into, how well you're doing currently in your learning, and to make prediction on how well you'll be doing for, say, the rest of this year. And I don't know how well you can see this. It's being, your performance and the prediction is being charted across this quadrant, what they call a risk quadrant. I know, I wish the screen is, you can see it better too, but I'm hoping that when you get my slide deck, this is a little bit more clear. But if you even just Google this slide, I grabbed from their website, from Desire to Learn. So if you wanted to go and look at that, maybe the screen is a little bit better. So the gist of it is, I think the next slide is actually a little bit clearer. You can see it tells you that it charts your course timeline to say, and it's not just assessment based, it's also based on, if you looked at the left, I think it tells you course access and other things. To say whether you are you on track, or are you under engagement, or are you failing? So it gives you a numeric value. Like you can see it here. I hope you can read it. It's say 35% predicted grade at risk. So this is, the idea is not to judge you and see, whether you're a good student or bad student, but rather to have your instructors or your course designer or your manager to provide some sort of support or intervention. Or if you're at university, maybe your professors can look at this and say, maybe I need to schedule another tutorial session. There should be one for marriages. Oh, I am sure they have something like that for relationship, but I think that would be very interesting problem to solve. Or maybe Susan, you should start one. So this is I found it definitely curious. I have not seen too many systems attempting to do that. As you can see, where treading on thin ice here, it has performance implications at work. But certainly this is an emerging trend. Check out the movie timer. Okay, I will. Thanks for sharing that.
Sorry, that was to respond to Susan's comment that we should make one for marriages.
Oh, now that you added, tell us what it is about.
Oh, it's a movie about, you fill out a bunch of psychographic information, and then they give you something that sort of looks like a Fitbit, and it rings when you meet with another person who's supposed to be your soulmate. So it uses demographic and psychographic information to help you find the person to be your soulmate.
Can you reject the recommendation?
No. The whole concept of the movie is whether that's ethically the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because people stop taking chances and they don't really fall in love because they're waiting for a machine to tell them what to do.
Oh, I see. Wow, that is interesting. It's certainly something really to watch out for here too, right? Just because the system is telling you the student's 36% at risk, but is it really? Because these metrics are not perfect. Maybe you know, you're going through some stuff and you're not able to log into the course this week, and is it because you're at risk, or is it just because something else happened, right? So that's good. That's a good recommendation for the movie. So any questions or comments so far before I move on to the third and the final disruptive technology I want to talk about?
There was a question that I think we skipped over here about,
yeah, I'm trying to read it as fast as I can.
Is there a good way to program multiple data to front load responses, from Sonia? When you were talking about, when you were back talking about Jill Watson and she didn't care about the pregnant woman, I think it was in relation to that, and Sonia can tell me if that's wrong.
So sorry, I missed the question. What was the question about then?
So she wanted to know, is there a way to program multiple data to front load responses?
I see.
About chatbots.
Yeah, that they are. Actually, there's even the idea of inspirational data or utopic data, to instead of just use past data to try to figure out what the ideal state and ideal responses are. But the challenge is that that's one thing, right? Like, so you know this is an issue when you encounter it, but it's really hard to like know what other issues, like what the gaps are. Like it's hard to know what are all the missing areas. Like they didn't even know about Jill Watson not able to respond to their pregnant student until they encounter it. Yeah, I know utopic data is really cool. That's right. At the moment, it just looks like it is spotlighting students for human intervention. Yeah, that's right. That's the limitation right now, I think. And the challenge with AI and machine learning is it's only useful when you have a lot of data. So a smaller subset is not necessarily representational. So any of us that conduct research knows that, right? Sample data has biases, and you have to be really aware of what the biases and limitations are to say it applied, you know, to these circumstances, but we still don't know, like, you know, if that applies to everything, or what are the error rate on these things are. And I think this is certainly something we need to be mindful of as AI applications become more and more common. I mean, think about all the ethical issues we have to deal with for driverless cars. Think about all the ethical issues we have to deal with when you have a virtual assistant in your home, in the form of Google Home, in the form of Alexa, you know, whatever all the other virtual assistant that are embedded in your home. You know, things goes wrong. They make wrong assumptions. As you know, the more famous cases are recruitment software have biases against female applicants. There's a legal predictive system called Compass. It also display racial biases against African Americans. So there are a lot of these issues are currently being discussed because machines are programmed by human and it inherited our biases. So definitely is something I think not just organizations, but at a national and an international level, there's a lot of thoughts that are being put together on ethics in AI, and I'll be happy to share some of the resources with you. IEEE has a paper on that. The United Nations is working on one. I know the UK government published a very well put together consultation paper on AI and how do we live with AI, you know, in the future in society. I know Canada is working on a position paper with Japan on that. So these things are just emerging. Okay, I can talk about that all day long, but I'm mindful of time here, so we're gonna have to move on. So the next and the final disruptive technology I want to chat a little bit about is I think somebody, I can't keep track with all the chat that's going on, but I think somebody mentioned virtual reality in the context of coaching. So I do want to talk a little bit about that in terms of virtual reality and augmented reality. So do you guys know the difference between the two? What's the difference? What is virtual reality versus augmented reality? Okay.
So I'm the one who made the mention of coaching for virtual reality. Mm-hmm. And in the one that I was thinking of, I saw a vendor who you hire an actor and teach them about your company culture. And then you set your employee down in front of them to do whatever scenario you want. And the virtual reality aspect of it is that you can change the gender, ethnicity, background, everything of the situation.
Yes.
While it's always the same actor who's having the interactions. You only have to teach one person about your company, and then they can do the coaching across all of your employees.
That's pretty cool. Is this Sarah that's talking?
It's Emily.
Emily. Okay, sorry, I have to keep track of who's talking. That is really cool. So I think Peggy and Sarah and everybody is sort of contributing. Somebody make a comment and say VL is completely fake. AL is manipulation of real life. Yeah, that's kind of it. So VL is immersive, right? You basically, the way I like to talk about is VL, you go into a different world. Like you leave your current world behind. You go into a different world. It's immersive. AL is you are still having your current world, your real life. It's still here, but you add another layer to it. As you say, you manipulate, you overlay what you're seeing. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on the terms. What I found interesting is last year was the year 2017 is when this sort of become mainstream, and it started showing up in a lot of the eLearning technology showcase. They start popping up. Last year was also the first year in Q3 that these companies shipped more than 1 million headsets. It was the first time that achieved that number, right? It's mostly driven by the gaming and the entertainment industry. But there's a lot of applications now in medical and in coaching. Empathy training is a big one, as you mentioned, Emily. And also in geography and architecture, there's huge applications on that. Just to brag a little bit, in Vancouver, Canada, we have a bit of an ecosystem here. We have literally hundreds of VL companies. Again, I'd be happy to share by stack, but I think vaguely you can see lots of them are content providers, but there's also on a lower bit here, there's education. 9.6% of the companies are education focused. There's the rest are distribution, solutions, hardware, and it's been growing because Vancouver has a large entertainment industry and gaming industry historically, and that sort of VL and AL companies sort of leverage that. To give you a little bit of perspective, 3 years ago, we have 15 companies. And now we have, I think, 200. So it's grown even just within the past 3 years here. And I don't know in the rest of where you guys are from in Oregon and the region, how big it is, but it's a pretty big deal here. So somebody mentioned there's a community college received a grant from Microsoft to implement AR in the classrooms. The auto shop students were able to use AR to practice working on cars. Cool. This is really interesting. I think that's right. There's a lot of educational applications now. And I also want to highlight the fact that last year I also saw it for the first time. The eLearning Guild actually put on an entire conference focusing on AR and VR. It's called Realities 360. I don't know, anybody been or heard of it?
Wanted to go. I wanted to attend. I didn't get a chance.
I know, it's just so many things going on. But you know, like that's interesting because like they you know, that kind of indicated that this has gone mainstream for them to put together a conference just dedicated to that, right? No Oregon chapter yet.
Well, I'll tell you, you know, so I work for, basically we are a Microsoft partner. In fact, the only Microsoft partner that is part owned by Microsoft, Avanade, and we've taken a lot of the Microsoft technologies. Somebody mentioned the Portland Community College application, and so we are eating our own dog food and using a lot of the Microsoft technologies to inform our learning and to deliver our learning. So it's been interesting. We use to see how much we avoid buying other types of learning specific software because we have the tools that are available just from Microsoft.
I think that's the danger of it, right? Sometimes that limit, it's sort of like it's like if you have a hammer, everything is a nail.
That's right. And you know, one of the benefits of using the Microsoft stack is that you can do almost anything with it, and you don't have to buy specialty applications. The downside is, right, that everything looks like a hammer and you don't get the benefits of specialized applications that are developed and configured just for a particular purpose, like delivering learning. Yeah.
Sarah mentioned something about language learning could go shopping in Paris. Actually, there's a company in Vancouver that does that. Language learning in an actual foreign city. Yeah, Sarah, feel free to drop me an email. I can connect you. There's also, the other thing I like to emphasize on is like, it doesn't even have to be like, you know, like places that are really far away. Sometimes even places in our neighborhood that we might not have access to, like prison. Like or being homeless. There's a really cool VR program to make you experience what it feels like to be homeless. I think it's put out by Stanford. So I can send you the link later on. But it's heart-wrenching because it started with you having a home, and it makes you, and then the story goes like you start, you know, losing your job, and then you struggle to get another job, so you have to sell your furniture, and so in this world you will start seeing your own furniture just like leaving you, and it's heartbreaking. But also the point that drove home was this could happen to me, you know, like it's not like an abstract problem, even though I see it on the street all the time. So I think that's what this tool is very powerful for, is accessing another world that might just be here, but you just never thought of a goal. This is another cool company called Virtual Speech. It improves soft skills with VR. It's free to download. Of course, they want you to pay a subscription fee for more sophisticated access to the tools, but you can go to App Store, download it, put it on your phone. You can put it in even like Google Cardboard, and you can you know, You can see how it works. Basically, it develops soft skills like presentation skills. How do you do job interviews? How do you network? So they're really cool in terms of like real life soft skill applications. I'll just leave it with you to check it out. The next one I also really love is an AR example called Engineers Mate. This is a project funded in the UK by University for Industry. They fund workplace learning technology projects. This one project basically is to say when there's one teacher and you have to deal with like 20 new staff to learn about a piece of equipment, this would help you go deeper into explaining and understanding equipment when the teacher doesn't always have time to go around to every one of the students and explain everything. So it just gives you more information to explore at a deeper level, which I think is a great use of AR. So moving on to that. So I just want to sort of wrap things up in terms of like, I know we sort of talked all along in terms of some implications. But the main thing I really want to drive home is, yeah, these are cool emerging techs and it's disrupting the way we do learning and development and the way we do e-learning. But really, I think the bigger overarching point is learning now doesn't happen in silos in organization like it tend to happen in the past. All these technology is really trying to, I mean, these technologies are in our everyday life, in our everyday home and personal usage. And they are now integrated at work. So we need to rethink learning is not just, you know, a workshop or a class or something that happens in an LMS. I think these are much more integrated into our daily performance. It's integrated into, you know, performance support. And that's what I see the future is moving toward in terms of L&D, in terms of how we support people, in terms of how people need to have access to information. You know, from whether it's a virtual reality headset, so you can, you know, look at it as you're in an actual setting, or a chatbot that is integrated into in your workplace coaching and learning or onboarding process. These are not, they shouldn't, you know, exist in silos. And I think that's the main point I wanted to make sure that you guys are thinking of. As well as just because these things are trending doesn't mean you have to go with them. I think everything has an opportunity cost, but you have to be really clear on where you put your resources in and why you're doing that. Oh, that's very cool. Somebody said my daughter used AR for architecture design. So that's kind of, you know, things I want to leave you with. And of course, you know, we talk about mitigated risks. It's, you know, you have to think it through. You have to think about opportunity costs. You have to be mindful of the biases, all of that. But I want to leave a little bit of, you know, I know we're running out of time, but any questions or any thoughts or any, you know, comments that you'd like to share? If not, I'm going to leave you with kind of the last slide with my contact information. Just so that this is really a great, I can barely keep up with all the comments that you guys are sharing and the links. So I really appreciate that. And I am so happy to continue the conversation with any of you or wanted to look for more examples. I'd be happy to, you know, send out more resources and links. So I'll bounce it back to you, Emily.
Thank you so much, Stella. I can't tell you how much I appreciated this. I tried to copy down all of the URLs that you mentioned and post them into chat, and I have a list of them that I can post to our LinkedIn group And when you send me the slide deck, I can post that up for everybody too. If you're not a member of our LinkedIn group, you can search the ATD Cascadia eLearning SIG and get it, and I will approve you as soon as I get the request. For those of you who are in the local area, our next meeting is on December 11th at 6 p.m. and we'll be at NWEA, and Peggy, who is on the call, is our speaker. And we'll be sending out the information about that later this afternoon. Thank you again. This was amazing.
Emily, I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
Is it possible for us to get a transcript of the chat?
I think so. Bob, do you know?
I believe we can. I think that's a question for Kathleen, but I'm pretty sure we can. And we are recording this, but I am just about positive we can get to a copy of the chat. So I'm making a note about that.
Thank
so we'll
you.
try and get that, and I'll connect with you later today, Stella.
And I just want to echo what Emily said. This was great, and thanks from the ATD chapter for spending your time, Stella.
Oh, no, thanks both Bob and Emily for being so great as hosts and support, and I had a lot of fun. You guys are great, so so much appreciated. You guys have a great rest of the afternoon.
Have a great day, everybody.
Okay.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.